Welcome back to the OG Rivals podcast. I am one of your hosts, Miles Teddick, the Packer fan on this podcast. We are now in the off season, so we don't have all the fan gear busted out, rocking different hats and shirts yet, letting you know who's who. We got a lot of debate coming up, and I am joined for that by the Bears fan on this podcast, Sir Miguel Prado. How you doing,
that's
sir?
me. Bear down. Shout out to the Midwest, all those Bears and Packer fans that are probably a little chilly here. I think there was a couple inches, maybe 3-4 inches of snow on the ground. I checked in with some people in Illinois. But Miles, don't speak too soon because I am repping the closest I got to a fly Eagles fly green here. All on purpose here.
That'll work. Hey, so I guess spoiler alert.
Hey.
We know who Miguel is rooting for here in this side of things,
Yeah.
and you know what? Fine, I will take the Chiefs. I will happily stand behind the Chiefs. Got some cousins and family up there in Kansas City. Shout out to Aunt Lynn, cousin Katie, cousin Ben. Love you guys. Go Chiefs. So I guess we can just continue this rivalry just as we naturally do.
We can't agree on anything. Nothing. Well, I'll say this because we're coming out of the gate a little hot here. So why don't you tell our listeners at home who's sponsoring the show tonight?
Hey, let's go. We first and foremost, we have some fun on this show. Why? Because we want to feel better today, y'all. We want y'all to feel better today. That's what we're passionate about at lifeleafremedies.com. We are making some superior natural remedies by combining cannabinoids like CBD, CBDA, CBG, CBN, all sorts of acronyms there. Combining those with your natural vitamins and minerals and even fungi that you all are very familiar with. Shout out to the show Last of Us, where apparently cordyceps are turning things into zombies. Just to be clear, we do have cordyceps in our immune support. No, you will not turn into a zombie. I at least have not yet done that. We've got several pretty happy customers that I don't believe are zombies, so we're doing pretty good on that front, just in case anybody's worried. But back to it, we are helping y'all with things like sleep, immune support, and other areas where you seek relief. So check out lifeleafremedies.com. If you like something, subscribe to it. You'll get free shipping, 10% off, and you can cancel that whenever you feel comfortable doing so because you're in control of that. So help us out, y'all. And we got a couple things. Oh, wait. No, we're helping you out by helping you feel better today. And you can help us out, the OGs out there, by doing a few things, sir. What would those be?
Yes, if you enjoy, please don't forget to spike that like button, leave us a comment, subscribe, and talk about us at the Super Bowl tailgate. That is the next NFL game on the slate.
Go. And the next few folks who do exactly what Sir Miguel Prado has just described, the like, comment, and subscribe combination. That is subscribing to the YouTube channel, by the way. So if you are listening to this on Spotify or any of the other rad places that you can check out a podcast, jump over to YouTube, hit that like button, leave us a comment letting us know who you are, and subscribe to the channel. And we're going to send you a Life Leaf gift package. Simple as that. You will need to let us know who you are. We'll reach out. We'll DM you. We'll get a promo code over to you that you can redeem on the website and get you out a free gift package. So not a drawing, folks. Just the next 10 folks to do that. We have 31 whole subscribers on this channel, and we love every 31 of y'all. And we've got a lot more listeners than that, actually, which is kind of cool. But just wanted to shout out very specifically the next 10 of y'all. So we're at 31. By the time we get to 41, it's done. Y'all are getting a free Life Leaf gift package. So hit us up. Again, like, comment, subscribe, and let us know who's listening here, y'all. So let's jump in, man. We're the Bears are on the clock. We started this last week. You're on the clock here again still this week. Have not traded that pick away. What is the latest out of Hallis Hall?
Yes. Well, I will say this. Thank you to the 31 subscribers that we do have. This is episode 24 of the OG Rivals podcast. We are a Chicago Green Bay rivalry. And there's still football to be played, Miles. So while we are on the clock, I'll say this because we're out of the gate. Everybody's tuning in. I believe that pick will be traded. I think that if you've listened to this podcast, you already know what side of the fence I'm on. I believe
hot take
that trade will be traded. I think it'll be traded in March, Miles. I think historically that's around the time when the argument is you don't want to go into draft night, go on the clock, and then start fielding those calls, right? You want to make the best decision that you can make, and I think you can do that with alleviating some of the pressure. So I do believe there will be a trade. I do want to get into all of that, but I want to get into a little bit of the storylines from this championship weekend that just passed us by.
Yes, sir.
There's plenty of them. I mean, do we want to start with Eli Apple? Kind of bananas. Do we want to start with Patrick Mahomes? And there's a lot of Twitter noise going around about maybe getting bailed out by the refs. Speaking of getting bailed out by the refs, San Francisco seems to feel the same way with Brock Purdy, who was it a UCL that he had fully torn UCL.
Man.
I'm not sure if you got an opportunity to catch that game, Miles, but Shanahan was just calling run plays. I mean, and I mean, you have the number one defense in the league, and they're keeping them in the game. I would say roughly keeping them in the game because it was 21-7 at one point, but
it was pretty rough. Yeah.
In the third quarter, it started to feel like with that game plan, obviously with Josh Johnson getting in and out of the game, Brock Purdy comes back and you can't even throw a pass because he's got one arm. And it just felt like in the third quarter, if you were an Eagles fan, it started feeling like you're punching your ticket to Arizona in the third quarter. Obviously Philadelphia, congrats to them. They make it to the second Super Bowl in 5 years, which
pretty
modern
cool.
day is pretty impressive.
Yep.
But tons of storylines. What was your favorite from championship weekend, Miles?
I think that there was some good that came out of it. I think the one thing you were alluding to there with the 49ers is this third string or third quarterback rule where, teams need to be able to have a third kind of emergency quarterback on deck their game day that's not impacting the rest of the roster. I don't think it's hard to weigh in and say that should be the case. And to take, kind of a perspective from one of our favorite topics here, Aaron Rodgers, he weighed in on that on McAfee, and I agree with him. I mean, if the game is worth so much, do you really want your championship, your conference championships, your league semifinals essentially coming down to a team that can't throw the ball? I mean, that's terrible. And it's kind of freak accidents. They were already down to Brock Purdy to begin with, who is, number 3 on the list, and then they get down to number 4, and then they got to go back to a broken number 3, and it's just a wild situation where you even if there's an exception for the playoffs, I think that's how hockey does it. Like they can call up a bigger roster for the playoffs. Something like that, where you've got a little bit more of a bolstered roster for your playoffs so that you don't end up in a situation like that, because that's just kind of embarrassing, man. And as much as, I don't really hate the Eagles. I don't love them, but I don't really have any love lost for the 49ers at this point, so a tragic loss for them in the conference championship is kind of like, whatever. Yeah. That was coming to you at some point. I'm not crying for anybody's fans. I just think, for the quality of the game, you definitely need to have that third quarterback, because I was listening to it and it was pathetic, man. It was just like you could just hear the defeat from the 49ers. Because what do you do when you know you can't throw the ball? They know you can't throw the ball. What do you? you can only be so creative. So,
Yeah.
um,
And
yeah, you just don't want it coming down to
I
that.
mean, like I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You can only be so creative because it was either you're handing the ball off, it's a jet sweep, it's reverse, you're putting the ball into Christian McCaffrey to gimmick play for him to throw the ball. He's thrown 2 touchdowns in his career. I mean, that's not who you want throwing the ball. I agree with you.
No.
You mentioned, expanded rosters going into the playoffs, and Major League Baseball does that as well.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I think if anything, it upholds and preserves the integrity of the competitiveness because, like any sport, right? Injury, unfortunately, is a reality of the games that are being played.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. I think it's worth mentioning. Philadelphia, they won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback in 2018.
Yep.
The Chicago Bears, they notoriously, right? Jay Cutler, an NFC Championship game, he goes down, and you got Caleb Haney going in. Um, it is the reality of the game, but I agree. You don't want it to come down to where it's a clear disadvantage where
Yeah.
I mean, you just know they're not throwing it. Um, yeah, San Francisco. I think they were a good storyline that I appreciated because Brock Purdy, obviously Mr. Irrelevant. How can you not root for him? Obviously, it's a little bit of a fresher
Cool
wound
story.
for you with last year's exit. My favorite storyline from this past weekend was that AFC matchup where I couldn't believe it. And I couldn't wait to hop on here with you because of all of the locker room material, whiteboard material that was given, and just as if Andy Reid needed any extra ammo to get that team ready to go. You have Eli Apple running his mouth, Eli Apple's mom running her mouth, the Cincinnati mayor calling it Burrowhead Stadium, which I see you shaking your head. I mean,
Just
you're leading up to. I mean, you can call me old school all you want. So you're blue in the face, but I remember the days. And yes, if you're listening at home, there were days where the Bears were knocking on the door for conference championships, going to the
oh
Super
yeah.
Bowl. And I remember at the time, right, the most you would get out of mayors was betting. I think it was like with Philadelphia. It's like, hey, I'll bet you a deep dish pizza for Philly cheesesteak on, and may the best team win. Right? You don't want to give them any
Yeah.
bulletin board material, right? You
No.
got the mayor
No.
calling Arrowhead Burrowhead. Some would say that that's sacrilegious, Miles. Right? Like, forget being a
I mean,
Chiefs fan. Like, you're just a sports fan. I get it. Joe Burrow, he's the man. I think everybody, not everybody. I personally am a Joe Burrow fan. LSU fan, Ohio State fan from his time there. I just think he is a stud quarterback, franchise quarterback.
absolutely.
But do you just like forget?
You
Do you
don't
have
do that.
amnesia? Do you forget that what Patrick Mahomes has done in his career, even without the high ankle sprain? Right, like you're going into
I mean,
Kansas City, home field advantage, and you're going to get that defense amped up, right? Because
oh
you're,
yeah.
you're essentially mocking their stadium. There was a little bit of talk about, is it a rivalry? Well, Kansas City hasn't really beat Cincinnati like in the last year or two, so can it be a rivalry? I think that bulletin board material was all that was needed going into that game to just be like, please go beat the brakes off of these guys, right? Like Eli Apple talking smack all week. What were your thoughts about
Yeah.
that?
The first thing that comes to my mind, act like you've been there.
Exactly.
Like you were in the Super Bowl last year. So, yeah, I'm with you on the old school side of things, like handshake and, and a Philly, right? Like I'm not looking for any attention here. And I don't know that, well, here's the thing. I don't know that the players and coaches in Cincy care. They probably aren't paying attention to any of that. I mean, obviously Eli Apple is running his mouth, but if I'm a teammate of Eli Apple, and I didn't see exactly what he said. I want my teammate talking trash. I definitely want that within some bounds, I guess. But do I want my teammate's mom talking trash? No, not at all. Like, come on, man. Like, we gotta keep things, where they belong. And the other thing is like with the mayor. Again, the players in Cincy probably don't either care or notice or both. The players in KC do.
Yeah.
They see that, and it's not like that's making the biggest difference for them on game day. But man, like, yeah, you don't need to give them another reason to just be like, oh boy, let's go. You just don't need that. You have too much talent in that team. Why are you riling them up? Like, what's the point? I guess Sun Tzu is one. Are you familiar with Sun Tzu?
I think you mentioned them in a
Have you heard
previous
of that?
episode.
Well, Sun Tzu's an author of I think the Art of War is called is the
Yeah.
book. Yeah. But yeah, like why would you give your opponent any advantage? That doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, we talked about this earlier in the season when the Packers were going up against New England, and I called out Belichick because he was being so complimentary of Rodgers. I was like, don't you fall for that for a second,
Yeah.
because that is buttering you up. That's doing exactly what you should do to your opponent.
Yeah.
Is get them to let their guard down, give yourself an advantage over them. When these guys are out there running their mouths unnecessarily too, it's like, what, you have nothing to gain from that. It's not productive. I think like retrospectively, if I'm the coach, and I think this is really where it has to come from, or maybe the GM, some team leadership, I'm going back to the mayor and being like, yo, chill. Like, can you let us like take a business approach to this? We got some work to do here.
Does he get reelected? I mean, I don't know after that.
Ooh.
I don't know.
I think there's some pull there, or at least redirect it. Be like, hey man, love the energy. Let's wait till after we get some rings on our finger. Like let's win the Super Bowl. Then you could say whatever the hell you want.
I'll say this. I'll throw a little wrinkle in there, Miles. To your point of, I want my teammate talking trash. I agree. Not on Twitter, right? Like talk trash.
Yeah, right.
On the field, maybe in the tunnel.
Yeah,
maybe during warmups, because I think that's psychological. Right? Because it's like the other guy might have butterflies and you come out there and you're chirping. I think that's when some mind games start going, right? But when you give your opponent
for sure
a runway, and let's not forget, Twitter fingers is a term because that's precisely what it is, right? It's like, hey, can you back up what you're saying? Or are you just smoke, right? Are you just Twitter fingering it up? And you're putting all this out into the ether, all this Cancun on 3. There's a lot that's been said that was mocking of Damar Hamlin's situation, which is, again, that attention that, well, I guess in this day and age, right, like negative, positive, it's attention, because that negative attention that Eli Apple has brought to the Damar Hamlin situation apparently was a catalyst for about $9 million worth of donations to Damar Hamlin's foundation. So, I mean, you can say again, right? Like who's truly winning is in entertainment. Maybe I'm trying to dissect it too much, because where I land on that question is Eli Apple put his team at a disadvantage by making it about him, and the mayor made it a disadvantage by making it about him, and the players made it a disadvantage with the Burrowhead, all of that. Like I said, you're giving them a runway versus just going there on the field, playing hard, right? Like you want to physically impose yourself on the other team. That's I think more in the long run, that's more talking shit, right? It's like I can manhandle you. Me and my teammates are more prepared than you. We're more disciplined than you. I'm all for in between the hashes, right? Like chirp all you want all game long.
Yes. Because that's where it is really an advantage. It can be.
It absolutely can be. I mean, Chicago, obviously Michael Jordan was one of the best in the game, right? Of just like completely demoralizing just belittling and patronizing, like professional athletes, like nothing. I think that's where you do it, right? That's part of the game. Is at the end of the day, you're competing. I circling a little bit back to the officiating. I just never want to leave it to the officials, right? Like I think like if you do that,
Just can't do it.
No, yeah, you absolutely cannot do that. I think with the roughing, or what was it? It wasn't roughing the passer because I think it was just unnecessary.
It was
roughness.
what unnecessary, roughness.
Yeah, on that Osaya on Cincinnati, number 58.
Right,
dude. Pat Mahomes was clearly out of bounds. It's not perception of was he or wasn't. He was clearly out of bounds. You can't do that, especially this day and age in the NFL.
Right.
And then on top of that, to Patrick Mahomes, right? Like, he's NFL Cinderella. Like, you can't put hands on him.
No.
You got to be smarter than that. I don't, and this is like from a Bears fan. So, changing up the script a little here. I didn't have a problem with the officiating. Are there holding calls that are missed? There's holding calls that are missed every game. There's going to be holding calls that are missed in the Super Bowl.
Time.
Sorry to ruin that
all
for
the
you,
time.
Twitter, but if you're going to watch the Super Bowl, you're going to miss some missed holding calls, some missed offensive pass interference, some missed defensive pass interference. At the end of the day, you have to play, not let those calls be determining factors at this stage, right? In regular season, that's where I feel like, yes, sometimes the refs can have an impact in the game. At this level, you can't leave it to the referees, because we know they're bad, right? Like, we've been singing this song.
Exactly.
Tune into any episode. Me and Miles we're going in on officiating in the NFL. Yeah.
And the players know that too, and that's the thing is these guys, and you feel for Osai, like that's tough, where it kind of feels like he sort of ruined his team's season, but you can't let it come down to that. There's almost 100 other plays in that game, or more. I don't know how many plays were in the game, but there's a lot of other plays in that game that go one way or another and impact the game. But just because that was the final one, or one of the final ones, that's in the spotlight. But his teammates are doing the right thing. They were lifting him up, and they won't let him wear that too heavy. But you can't, and it's because of that. Like, you really have to look at a game as a collection of plays. Just because one happened at the end doesn't mean it was more impactful than one happened in third quarter, second quarter, whatever it is. So I really hate doing that. There's a handful of times that I have done that I'll point to. This is why they lost. But for the most part, you try not to, because it's just a stupid game to play at this point. The refs are bad.
I'll say this is, the polarizing play, obviously the one that gets all the attention in the media, on Twitter with the fans, is that unnecessary roughness play. No one, and I haven't seen it mentioned once, Miles, is the 40-yard punt return that led to that field position, right? It's like, about special teams, like all of a sudden that phase doesn't matter, right? Like, come on.
That's why you can't play that game, because again, there's so many other plays that you can point to and go, well, what if this doesn't happen, or what if this does happen? I don't like doing that. It's just not the right way to look at a game. You got to look at it from a holistic perspective. What happened? Could you run the ball? Could you not run the ball? Was your quarterback making good decisions or not making good decisions? Like, what happened? Those are the things that really, we try to, at least on this podcast, get down into and try to point to. But yeah, as far as that all goes, I think the right team won. Yes, the Bengals are a strong team. They're going to be tough for years to come with that offense. They'll have no problem adding pieces to that defense and maintaining, being a contender, just kind of like Buffalo. I mean, the AFC is going to be tough for years to come, which is why I would be more than happy to segue this and punt Aaron Rodgers right on off into the AFC.
Well, if you're punting, Miles, I will say this. This podcast, we've had some right predictions. We've had many wrong ones, but we've had some right ones. And it was episode 23, I believe, when I said, hey, Nathaniel Hackett is going to be going as an offensive coordinator to New York, and then keep an eye on the storyline of Aaron Rodgers. And so who got hired as the offensive coordinator in New York?
Here we are.
Come on now.
Here we are. And let me now, continue on with that prediction, because it was earlier in the season that I was shouting for Rodgers to be traded. It might have been like episode 13 or something. So we have been hot on this trail for a while. And yeah, definitely not surprised by the Hackett hiring. And on McAfee today, they really set Rodgers up to answer the question of, does that influence, whether you would want to go there or not? And of course, they asked in a roundabout way, and he answered in a roundabout way. But the way he answered basically did say, yeah, Nathaniel Hackett's one of those special dudes. But it wasn't, that's where I'd like to go play because he's there. It was, like, if he was there, he would enjoy playing for that guy, and so obviously Rodgers is very careful with his words, quite the wordsmith in a lot of ways, but in this case, I feel like the pieces are already set. Yeah. Like the pieces are already in play. I think he knows that he's moving on. And in the other part of the interview, they ask him about the Romeo Doubs comments about not hanging out with Rodgers during the season. And his answer to me felt very much like a guy who did not expect to be going back to those same players.
Yeah.
There was a lot, and it was, again, we've done this a lot with these interviews and with the Rodgers Tuesdays, but with this, this is what we've got, right? Like he puts stuff out there. We get to look at it and think, see what we think. In this particular interview, it really felt like he was talking to Romeo Doubs and the rest of those young guys in a response to that in a way that's like, your opinion doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's like, dang, dude, that's just not how I would talk to somebody who I'm going back to work with.
Or going to work out with in the off season.
Right. And that comes back to the whole issue of him saying, hey, you're not doing a good enough job in the season, and then him running off and being totally absent in the offseason. Yeah. And, hey, there's a lot of players coming to his defense on this, and fair enough. But at the same time, look, y'all have a job to do. And if you're going to complain about guys not being on the same page with you, which, otherwise, well, how do you know he's complaining? He's saying it's a problem that they're not on the same page as me. If that's not a complaint, I'm sorry. I guess maybe we could disagree on language, but that sounds like a complaint. Anyway, the point being is, if that's going to be his perspective, would it not be beneficial to him, and this is me being a broken record on this podcast, would it not be beneficial to him to spend time with those guys? I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. I have spent time with folks outside of work to try to get them up to speed. I mean, it's not a hard thing or a foreign thing to expect of someone, especially someone who has thrust themselves into a leadership position and really defended themselves as a good leader, right? I mean, he's kind of done that several times. So it's just, to me,
I think you could criticize his leadership 100%. And this isn't just as a Bears fan. I think you could, especially this last season when it started unraveling a little bit, right? With what was it, a 5-game losing streak, something like that.
It was pretty bad.
And you and I, this was the first episode of the regular season after that Minnesota game. We both called out his leadership with, like, dude, you don't call out a rookie for dropping a pass. Like, come on, man. And it was the eye roll, the infamous eye roll, right? After,
yes.
And look back at the season that Watson had, right? Like, I mean, that's why you don't do that in that moment. I mean, that's just
Right.
me personally. I think you can criticize his leadership. I think, and this isn't, there's no emotion here as a Bears fan. I think for the Packers, right? Like, you need that. You need to rip the Band-Aid off. You need to go this offseason, right? This offseason,
You have to do
and
it.
you have to do it. You have to go get the max return, the max ROI that you can based off of moving Rodgers out of the conference, right? It's just no question
Yep.
not going to be in the NFC. That's obviously why the Jets are on that short list with Nathaniel Hackett there as the offensive coordinator, and combine that with what he said today on McAfee, right? Of yeah, he's a special coordinator. Going to give you a Dumb and Dumber line here. So you're saying there's a chance, right? You're saying
So
there's
I'm
you're
saying
saying
there's a
there's a
chance.
chance. I could see it only because I think the sooner that Green Bay and Gute make that decision, it's almost like you get out of this just heavy storm and it's clear sailing, right? Like, you can then now you can
Yes.
put assets around Jordan Love. If he's your guy, maybe he's not your guy, and you go draft a quarterback. You're probably going to get a first rounder, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You get at least one first rounder for Rodgers, and I think just kind of depends on the situation that they're trading into. If there's a receiver or a player that makes sense to pair with it, maybe you get less picks. But yeah, you got to get at least a one.
yeah. I see. I see. I mean, if I was a betting man, I'd put money on that Rodgers isn't wearing green and gold, because I think he might be wearing green this upcoming season. But man,
Yeah.
I obviously have a lot of off seasons under my belt. I haven't had one where I'm this excited and there's still football being played.
There's a lot to be
Yeah,
excited about. I mean, honestly, between both these teams, the Packers and the Bears. I mean, we said it. The Bears are on the clock, but the Packers here. There's been some trade possibilities floated out there. About what we could get for Rodgers, and if you get the right trade, you might. The Packers might find themselves in the top 10 of this draft. So we might both be sitting here talking about pretty high draft picks. The Packers potentially with more than one first round draft pick, which could be interesting and lead to a lot more action. There's a lot to look at here, man. But I do think that this is a situation where, and again, if you haven't listened to the podcast before, there's plenty of receipts on previous episodes. But the real kind of catch you up summarization. The last two off seasons, I did not for a second think Rodgers was going anywhere, and basically since about week 5 of this past season, I've been saying Rodgers got to go.
yeah.
And I'd even might go as far as to say is they made a mistake by not capitalizing last offseason on that Russell Wilson trade, and where Rodgers' value was probably peaked, but you can still get plenty for him. I do think that they knew pretty early on in this season that, one, they need to move on from Rodgers, but two, Jordan Love can play ball.
Yeah.
And you've heard that from more than one player now. You hear that from the defense. These guys, defenders, know they see him in practice every day. They play against him. So I think that they know that Jordan Love's their guy. And what you got to do when you know that, and this is what kind of the same tune we've talked about with Brian Poles and his guy, you got to put all the assets you can around them, and they've done a really good job. If you look at the Packers roster right now, they've got plenty of young foundational pieces locked up that are easy to build around. They, a good healthy draft and maybe one key free agent, and you've got a damn competitive team here. So I'm very excited about this offseason, but as we've alluded to a couple of times now, the Bears are on the clock, man. So you think trade. What's on your mind here as far as how and who you would trade this pick with?
Yeah, I think the short list of trade partners is all in the NFC South. And obviously,
Okay.
you're not tuning into this podcast to get your news, right? We're not breaking news, but I think it's worth noting the dominoes that are falling. So D'Amico Ryans, he was on Denver's short list for head coach, turned them down. And
Yep.
I don't
Rough,
even
man.
think that D'Amico Ryans was Denver's number one choice. So all this that's coming out of Denver is we had three number ones, right? What do we say when you have two
Yikes.
quarterbacks? You don't have one,
You don't
right?
have
You don't have a
one.
quarterback. You don't have an
Yeah.
NFL coach, right? So here's what unfolded in the last 5 hours, right? So
Right.
D'Amico Ryans, he is the Texans head coach, right? So this has implications on that Bears first round draft pick. I'm gonna close this whole loop for you, Miles. That domino impacted, to your point of that Russ trade last year and the trade value for Russ, Aaron Rodgers connection. The Denver Broncos, who got iced out of the Jim Harbaugh sweepstakes with Michigan, right? He says, I'm going back to Michigan. Okay, well, apparently he was one of the three number ones. So now we get to who's the third number one if D'Amico is now the Texans head coach. 6-year deal with them. Sean Payton, right? So the Saints. So we're going all around the NFC South here. So now the Saints
All around.
trade Sean Payton, head coach, to Denver. So Sean Payton is officially Denver's head coach next season, and they gave up, I think, either a package of this year's first and this year's second, or next year's and this year's first and this year's second, or third for the Saints third, or next year's 2024's first and a package around that. So they get an opportunity to pick what they want, right? Um,
Right.
why this has implications on the Chicago Bears number one pick is because to your question of who can they trade that to. So obviously the Texans at number two and the Indianapolis Colts at number four, both of them you can say have an immediate need at the quarterback position where ideally you would want to take your guy, right? You don't want even at that number two spot, notorious number two spot for the Chicago franchise, you want to maneuver to go get your guy. And so we know who the field is. We know
Right.
it's CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levi, and I think there's another quarterback that's also climbing up some of the draft boards here. Why this impacts the Bears is D'Amico Ryans might not want to take a quarterback in his first year versus building around a quarterback, right? So you have Davis Mills, you have an opportunity to get a free agent quarterback and put some of those foundational pieces around him, right? So we see what happens when you don't have a foundation around a quarterback. Prime example, Justin Fields, Joe Burrow, right, with no offensive line, he got hurt.
Right.
So do you invest in that position, or do you invest in your football team? So with D'Amico Ryans coming in as a Texans head coach, it dilutes the potential trade for them to trade up to number one, right? Because he might not want to give away assets as a brand new head coach in that franchise, give up almost deplete an entire draft to go get a quarterback, right? So that leaves Indianapolis, right, as that potential target in the top five for the Bears. So I don't think it's going to be a haul where I saw a funny tweet where it was the 1999 trade from the New Orleans Saints. I can't remember who their trade partner was, but it was the Ricky Williams deal where they traded
Oh, is
like
that Ricky Williams? Yeah.
yeah, where they traded like number ones, number twos, number threes. Like they traded everything. That would be ideal, but I think most likely what we're going to be looking at is maybe this year's one and next year's one. But again, we're giving up the first pick, right? So this year's one would be that number four, next year's one, and then maybe like a third and a fourth. But
Right.
I think that that's a good trade. I think that that's good because then you give Ryan Poles more maneuverability. That one was tough for me to get out in one take, but he's gonna be able to maneuver that draft board much better to go up if he wants, right? To continue to be strategic. Keep in mind, Miles, they're all at the Senior Bowl right now, right? Like today,
Yeah.
they're all there. Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham, Matt Eberflus, they have all their scouts with them. Luke Getsy's coaching one of the Senior Bowl teams, right? So they're going to be very, very closely attached to these guys for the next week. These prospects that are coming out of the draft, where I think they're going to get comfortable moving down the board.
Yeah. Well, and it really depends on the evaluation of Ryan Poles, and there also might be, as far as like his team goes, like what does he need? How many assets does it take to fill those needs? But the other thing I was going to say is we might also have some conflicting interests here because it sounds like the Colts are sniffing around for a trade for a certain NFC North quarterback, which
Yeah,
might change their plans as far as what you just laid out. So I'm not really sure, man, but we got to buckle up because it
we
sounds
have
like
to
it's going to be
buckle
an
up.
interesting offseason.
Yeah, it's early. I mean, really looking down, and not I meant from Chicago to Indianapolis, right? Like not looking down
Right.
on Indianapolis, but just checking out what they're doing down there. I mean, I wouldn't have a lot of faith in a team that has Jeff Saturday as a returning head coach, and then the decisions, which they've already come out and said, right, the Carson Wentz trade, which I don't get why you say this like 2 years later, right? Like saying that put your franchise back. I just think that is to me an indication of culture, right, of this franchise that I don't trust what they do, right? Like every move's going to feel desperate. Um, but going up and getting an Aaron Rodgers completely changes that dynamic of trading. Because then what do the Bears do?
It
Do they
does.
trade the number one, down to a number nine? I think what is Carolina there in that spot? I mean, they could use a
Well, my next
quarterback.
question for you was: are there any, like a Carolina? Are there any teams outside of that top five that have potential to try to jump up and get up ahead of anybody else and trade with Chicago for that pick?
Yeah, I don't want to go too off the deep end here with trade possibilities, but I think 100% if you package a number one receiver, right, like a bona fide number one receiver, that's just just a scenario. Obviously, don't think this happens, right? But look at Las Vegas, right? With Derek Carr, he they've said he's out, right? Which ironically he gets voted, he gets slotted into the Pro Bowl today, right? But yeah,
What a
whatever, we don't
weird
need a Pro Bowl
league,
quarterback,
man.
right?
Yeah,
Whatever.
it's
So
fine.
he's out. So the only reason why I'm throwing this scenario right into the sandbox is to answer your question of what do you think can happen, right? So I can see a team packaging like, okay, so to your Sun Tzu point of the art of war, right? It's like, okay, so what would the Bears bite on to make that type of move when we're lower, right? Let's talk 9 to 12, 9 to 15, right? What's it going to take? If you package a Devonte Adams, if you package D Hopkins, right? If
Yep.
you package one of these receivers where okay, Chicago is anemic at the position,
Yep.
right? Um, Today, right? We don't know what it's going to look like in training camp or preseason, regular season, but today, what would it take? That's what I think it would take, Miles, is you package your first rounder, you package your number one receiver, you package probably in that ballpark of a third and a fourth this year, right? Maybe next year's one. I think you can move from the teens to the number one spot because at that point there's value there, right? in doing that. I think Ryan Poles right now has the poker hand that he wants.
Oh
No matter,
yeah, he's got an
he's
all
got
way
an all
go.
exactly
Yeah.
because you can still draft the number one overall draft pick, the number one prospect in the
Yep.
country.
Just take the
Just take
best
the best
player.
player.
Yeah, man. And we right now could probably agree that it's not likely to be a quarterback. I mean, and you know, I know we got to wrap up here soon, but you know, something we'll get into in future episodes coming up as we get closer to the combine and the draft and free agency and all this kind of fun offseason stuff. We'll talk about some of these players and where they're coming from and some of the schools and everything, because I'm not so sold about the quarterback who's supposed to be at the top of this draft. You know, the Alabama quarterbacks haven't done so great in the league, and you know, Ohio State,
they haven't done great in the league either.
kind of the same. You know, yeah, Justin Fields actually is probably has the best shot of anybody to turn that around. But yeah, so I'm totally not sold that the top talent coming out in this class is a quarterback. I think that there's definitely a debate to be had. Maybe you and I can get into that too. But another player out of Alabama certainly looks the part. You know, you never know kind of what they're prioritizing, if they need to get a tackle, you know, whatever it may be. But there's a lot to look at, a lot to get into. But is there anything else on this episode as far as what the Bears are doing with that pick that you wanted to cover?
Well, I got a wrinkle for you. Is we're going around the league, and we can go through your around the league.
I got a couple of points still up there.
We can go around the league, but before we do that, Los Angeles, the Chargers today, they obviously the 2023 salary cap by the NFL is released. They are $20 million over the cap. Right, they obviously made that very famous trade with the Chicago Bears last offseason. Ryan Poles sending Khalil Mack to the West Coast. So they come out, and the speculation is, okay, not only can you not afford him, right, but I mean, come on, you have some needs on that team where I think both you and I can agree a veteran on the wrong side of 30 pass rusher is albeit that he's a destructive force, that's a luxury, right? That's a luxury for a team for exactly the Chargers, the dynamic the Chargers had last offseason, right? Where we're a contender,
100%.
Let's go get Khalil Mack, right? Because he's expensive. Yeah. He's expensive. So there's this possibility now that, you know, obviously the Bears, they have $98 million. The next two teams, I think, are at like 55 and like 40. So the next two teams with 2 and 3, as far as having the most salary cap, are still, if you combine them, less than the salary cap the Chicago Bears have this offseason. Isn't that crazy?
It's wild. To spend, wild. Man.
So there's a universe, a parallel universe out there, Miles, where Khalil Mack gets signed as a free agent by the Chicago Bears. I mean, man. you need the front seven, right? You like that.
So I think this is an intro to an ongoing segment here that we can call wish list.
Oh yeah,
because it's long.
Yeah,
and the potential here that the Bears have is pretty big. So yeah, totally makes sense. I think that could happen. Now, let me ask you this: I don't know. You know, obviously not following the team closely while he was there. I mean, did it feel like Khalil Mack loved Chicago? Like, does he want to go back to Chicago?
So, to answer your question, there wasn't a warmness of, you know, how like some are just like hometown guys.
Yes.
Right.
Like, I'm staying here for life.
Yeah. Like I would imagine, right? Like your Randall Cobbs of the world, where he's beloved, right? Khalil Mack.
Yes.
Keep in mind, he was a Raider. Ryan Pace makes that famous trade in the offseason of 2018. And then they make a run, beautiful run, regular season. I think they were like 13-3, something like that. Then they go to the playoffs, famous double doink situation. And then Khalil Mack, after that, was doubled and triple teamed because they couldn't get anybody. This enter Sandman, right? Enter Robert Quinn, who's going to the Super Bowl. God bless him. But he can. The stars never aligned where Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack were full goes, right? Like one had a nick here, the other one had an ankle here, right? So it was just never that pass rush that you would want to build and envision. And then there were some stories, right, where Khalil Mack like infamously like had a security guard out at Halloween and wasn't giving out Halloween candy, right? Like it's just like, hey guys, get your kids out of here, right? So to answer your question, no, I don't think there was like that, like, oh, he's a forever Bear, but I think he has come out and said, right, like he was a great teammate. He never hung his head even during those Matt Nagy six game losing streaks, right? Like he suited up, he went out,
he got out there and got after it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where I would imagine that if the money's right, and I think for the Bears, they could put a deal together for an aging pass rusher, Khalil Mack.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, definitely on the wish list.
Well, we'll see, man. I don't think he's on the Packers' wish list. I think if they're going to get a pass rusher, they're going to have to do it through the draft. They don't have a whole lot of capital to work with on the salary cap side. Although they always seem to maneuver their way around and acquire a few guys who end up being meaningful additions, and you've never heard of them. I mean, DeAndre Campbell, street guy to All-Pro. So you just never know. But, yeah, I don't think the Packers will be in on the Khalil Mack sweepstakes there. It would be interesting to see him return to Chicago. I mean, I think that'll be telling about, who pulls targets in free agency. Will tell us a lot about what he thinks his draft plan is and where he thinks the opportunities are in the draft. So that'll be interesting, man.
Yeah, I got to keep an eye on. See. Do you have a wish list for the?
Oh yeah, I mean, listen. The wish list starts and really can end with QJ, Quentin Johnston.
Yeah,
guys, TCU receiver, absolute monster, Gute. I'm begging you, find a way to get this man on your roster. And how ironic would it be if Aaron Rodgers gets traded and with the pick that they acquire,
they go and get a receiver.
They use it on a receiver.
My goodness. We are the People's Podcast. I don't know if you know this, but we are the People's Podcast. We give the people what they want. The people want a number one draft, a first round receiver in Green Bay.
We want a first-round receiver in Green Bay, damn it! And it's gonna. If we got to trade Aaron Rodgers to get it, then we're gonna do it.
You know what? That I gotta say it because we are accountable here. That's definitely a meatball take. I think. I think so. You know what? Honestly,
I'll own it.
I would be a little bothered if QJ is in green and gold next year. So I think he's a stud.
Oh,
I think he's a stud.
Make it happen. Make it happen. He's a stud. I have had eyes on him for the last 2 seasons at TCU. Obviously, being down the road here, I get a little bit of insight before he was on the national stage. But dude's a beast. You put him next to Christian Watson, and he's huge. Big. He's a big dude. And he goes up and gets it. He plays bully ball. I want that guy on our team. I want him. I want him opposite Christian Watson with Romeo Doubs in the slot, with DeAndre Hopkins on the other side. That's what I really want.
So
and Jordan Love slinging the rock.
Laughed off the podcast here, but you know who, not skill wise, but just built frame wise, who he reminds me of? It's going to be close to home.
Who's that?
It's going to be close to home.
Chase
Claypool,
Marshall.
Man. Chase is a specimen.
Yeah,
he's a beast.
He is.
Like just built wise, right? Like he can go up and body the ball like Jamar Chase. And when I saw QJ, it might have been the playoffs, the college football playoffs, where he took a little screen pass, right? And like there wasn't daylight, dude, and he just cuts it upfield and was just gone. And like, to me, that was, I think, when I had the eureka moment of like, whoa, this dude is going to be a monster at the next level. So yeah, we definitely got to keep track of the wish list. We'll revisit it. I think it'd be cool. Obviously the off season has its peaks and valleys to revisit the wish list along the way, because like I said, those dominoes as they fall, Miles, things change of what's accessible and what's not. So we'll definitely have an emergency podcast once Gute ships 12 out of town.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to be completely obnoxious on Twitter. I'm going to get us muted and blocked by so many people if Gute uses a first round pick on a receiver that he got for Aaron Rodgers. That will be the absolute poetic.
I think it'd be personal at that point.
Relationship.
It'd be personal,
dude.
Right?
That'd be way more personal than Ted Thompson versus Brett Favre ever was. Way more personal. Because Gute would get it. Like, that's the thing, is like Aaron Rodgers is this like deep thinker and everything. If Gute really wants to kick him in the ass on the way out the door, is like and I don't know that that's what he wants. Hopefully they end peacefully if that's what's happening. But just having fun here. If he wants to really kick him in the ass on the way out the door, that's the way to do it, man. Because that would burn his soul. Yeah. That would just he would never. There's not enough ayahuasca in the Amazon to smoke that one. Yeah, when
you said
off.
Deep thinker, I was going to say ayahuasca will do that
to you. He's going to be on his next trip, and Gute's just going to be right there.
Just a floating head. QJ floating around him, running the ball.
You never had a first round receiver.
Yeah, no kidding. So what is it, like a tea, Miles,
man.
Or is it?
We have fun here.
A tea ayahuasca? Is it like a leaf?
Well, yeah, I guess it is a tea. I say smoke. Okay. I think it is a tea. Now, not that I don't know. Some kind of experienced being here. I've only watched Chelsea Handler do it on a Netflix special thing that she did, which was actually quite interesting. I wish I could remember what it was called, but she was basically just trying all the drugs. Yeah, we really are. Anyway, no, go check out Chelsea Handler doing ayahuasca, but see what it was like for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I think it's going to be a super interesting offseason. We definitely have to do an emergency pod when Gute ships 12 because it's going to be wild.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think March, right? February, Groundhog Days this week, right?
Here's the thing. I think it could happen fast.
You think so?
I think it could happen a lot faster than people think. Right now, the teams are prioritizing, right? Kind of like we're talking about. Denver had their 3 1s, and they had a 1, 2, and a 3. We all know that. That's what's happening right now. So we're gonna find out if anybody's got 12 at the top of their list, kind of like the Jets are rumored to. If that's the case, they're not gonna wait for anybody else. They're gonna press to get that trigger pulled, so that they can't get one upped, i.e. Khalil Mack when the Packers were trying to make that trade and the Bears swooped out from under him and didn't give him a chance to counter. Something like that. Yeah, I think that causes it to happen quick and it becomes more of a free agency period acquisition than anything else. So we'll see, man. Probably March, maybe before March. Maybe there's some chatter at the scouting combine.
That's when those meetings take place. And I'll say, from this podcast and our little microcosm of the NFL world here. So we've thrown some wild cards out there, right? So the Tennessee Titans was one that you mentioned as a darker horse, which I think I even remember saying we need to have a darker horse segment. But so just to recap, so we have the Tennessee Titans as a potential destination. We have Indianapolis, which I think is a legitimate contender for that Aaron Rodgers sweepstake. Sure. The New York Jets, I think, are still for me up there on that short list. And you had mentioned New England. Do you want to keep New England on the list? I don't personally see it. I think it might.
Nope, we're going to kick New England off the list.
I think we might be dialing it in.
Well, we have a specific reason. You know what that is? For booting New England?
Why?
They just hired what's his name? O'Brien. They just hired O'Brien back
from Alabama
as the offensive coordinator. Yeah. Oh. So they're doubling down on Mac Jones.
Yeah.
So he had Mac Jones at Alabama. Obviously, O'Brien was with New England before as an offensive coordinator. So, yeah, it definitely seems like they're doubling down there on Mac Jones. So I do believe they're firmly out of the Rodgers sweepstakes.
See, you don't get the full. We are as meatball as they come, Bears and Packer fans. You don't get this type of dimension in other niche type of podcasts. Miles just coming in with these nuggets from the AFC, from the SEC. I mean,
we're coming from all directions here, guys.
I'm getting pumped up, Miles. Way to go. Way to go.
It's like meteorology, man. A front over here can impact things over here. So we just got to watch all the different fronts as they're shifting around.
Yeah, all those fronts.
Right. As I sit here in an ice storm in Texas.
Yeah. Which is now a common occurrence.
It seems like it. The last few years. It came out of nowhere. There was like a period there where there was nothing, and then these last few years, it's actually early February, like right on time. We're getting some wild weather. So,
well,
strap in.
Hey,
you just never know.
Let me say this. So we are staring down the barrel of the quarter century mark here on the podcast, Miles. So I'm excited to tune in, y'all. Next episode, we hopefully,
look at that.
If we have 10 new subscribers, what do they get, Miles? Wait, before we get there, or do you want to tell them what they can get and then we go into Super Bowl predictions?
Let's go. No, we'll tell them when we get.
That
way, at least people might still be listening to this, but we can make a segment out of it if we have to. No, absolutely. No, we're going to take care of y'all. We're going to get you a Life Leaf gift package that equates to $100. So I'm giving away $1,000 worth of product right now, guys. $1,000 worth of products. I'm not going to tell you what they are.
Oh, wait.
You just got to trust me here.
For the people in the back, how much? I can't believe it. How much?
$100. $100 of product to 10 people. We're giving away $1,000 total product here.
Holy
all right.
Smokes.
So the next 10 people who subscribe to this pod, you have to like the episode. You have to comment down below. You have to let us know what's up, who you are, because otherwise I can't send you the product. So you got to at least identify yourself. We can connect with you on DM, maybe on Twitter or wherever it has to happen, and you are going to get $100 worth of Life Leaf products. So the next 10 of you, we're just doing 10, the next 10 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you're listening outside of YouTube, jump into YouTube, like the episode. You got to spike that like button. You got to comment down below, let us know who you are, and you have to subscribe to this channel. And then you are going to get $100 worth of free product. I'm not saying you are going to get entered into a drawing. You are going to get $100 worth of free Life Leaf products. So get it done, folks. Get it done.
So if theoretically, because obviously I can't join this sweepstake here, but
no, you can't.
I'm speaking rhetorically, right? So if I click on the subscribe button, comment, like, I'm not entered into a sweepstake. I just get product.
You're just getting the product. We're going to reach out to you. We're going to contact you so that we can give you a promo code to redeem on the website where you put in all your information so that it's nice and secure, and we are going to send you that product free. You're not going to pay for shipping. There's no backdoor obligations, none of that stuff. All you got to do is something that takes you seconds. It takes you mere seconds, and it is free to you. So spike the like button, comment down below, and subscribe to this channel, y'all. We just want y'all to feel better today, and you doing that is going to help us feel better today.
Amen. Could have said it better. How about while we cool off from that excitement, you got some Super Bowl picks for me, Miles?
Hey, man, I'm going to stick with my early episode here, or earlier in the episode choice. I am sticking with the Chiefs. Let's go. Arrowhead Stadium. It is not Burrowhead Stadium, all right? I've been there. Arrowhead's the real deal. It is not to be messed with, especially when you're in an undefeated season. So, absolutely go Chiefs. I think Mahomes goes out and takes care of business because he is that dude. I think that the Eagles put up a good fight. I think that Jalen Hurts might be that dude, but not yet. Not yet. You're going up against a tough force there, and I don't think that the Eagles quite get it done. I think Andy Reid, man, former Eagles coach, he's just got too much, man. He's no way he's letting his former team stand in the way of another ring. So I'm sticking with the Chiefs. I say it's a hard fought battle in typical Chiefs fashion. They'll probably fall behind early and fight back late and win a game. Let's call it 35-31.
Whoa. That's a bold prediction. Any prop bets you got?
Oh man.
You want me to warm you up?
Yeah.
I got one for you.
What do we got here? What do you
bet you that we're going to see Jake from State Farm at the stadium.
Ooh,
you know why,
Jake
Miles?
From State Farm at the
Because
stadium.
Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes have a freaking State Farm commercial. They're playing at State Farm freaking stadium. And,
it's got to
happen.
That's a good prop bet. Prop bet. If Vegas doesn't have that one already, they will now.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a low payout.
Let's see here. I want to think of something related to Jason and Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey, because they've got the New Heights podcast bowl here. So are they going to pull some kind of stunt for their podcast? What are they going to do? I don't know if y'all haven't listened to the New Heights podcast. It's pretty funny, pretty interesting. Really though, and actually shout out to those guys. It's some of their talk is like real football talk. It's like film room, locker room.
Yeah, it's
full on
tough to turn
insight
off,
into
man,
It is. Yeah. It is. So it's a great listen. Highly recommend that if you guys are looking for some like authentic football dude talk. There's some great stories they share. But yeah, that my prop bet would be related to them doing something to promote their podcast.
Okay. I
bet
that.
they will.
I like that one.
Yeah.
Obviously, we got to work on our teasers because we came out the gate. We just told the world what we thought. And so obviously, my reasoning here, obviously as an NFC Bears fan, tend to lean to the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Fair enough.
I notoriously am not a Cowboys fan, so I think that what better way to end the 2023 season than the Philadelphia Eagles getting that Super Bowl win, and the Cowboys. I think they have like 2 playoff wins in that entire time. So that's one reason. Another reason is obviously not a big Chiefs fan, but I do think that for this Super Bowl, Miles, I think that it's going to be probably in that like 28. I'll call it 28-27. 28-27. Okay. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Fly, Eagles, fly. Yeah, I know you don't want to see Matt Nagy get a ring, too. I know where Chicago. No one in Chicago is rooting for Nagy right now.
No, I very seriously, yes, thank you. You are a great co-host, sir. I do not want to see Matt Nagy get a ring. But I will say this is if not the season ended, but if Mahomes just decided to step away from the game, I think he already cements his Boston Canton. I think he's a Hall of Famer already.
Now, so are you just saying that so that he doesn't continue to win more championships and make you further regret the Bears not drafting him?
No, there's no regret, Miles. There's no regret because if Ryan Pace would have, and let's not forget that what's his name, the old massage guy, Deshaun Watson. Okay, so he was the consensus number 1. So I think if anything,
that's true.
Ryan Pace completely botched it, but. If Mahomes was a Bear, which his dad came out on 670 to score today and said that the Bears franchise told his son that you're going to be a Bear. I think if Mahomes goes to Chicago, I think that John Fox and Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy ruin him the same way that they would have ruined anybody. Deshaun Watson, you could have put Brett Start back there, and I think they would have ruined him. So no, there's no regret there, and I think that whoever, whether it's Jalen Hurts or Pat Mahomes, I think it might be one of their last times to get rings. I think Justin Fields goes on a hell of a run here in the next
Oh,
decade. So get the rings while you
ooh,
can.
man, calling them out. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, we give the
Got
people
some
what they want.
optimism coming out. Heck yeah, we do, man. We're gonna give them $1,000 worth of LifeLeaf product. I hope they want that.
Tune in.
Yeah. Hey, look, we both are daddies and have kids that have intense demands, so we gotta go.
Yeah, sorry y'all, but
sorry. I mean, we just gotta go.
get the product.
No, but in all seriousness, y'all, stay tuned throughout the off season. We're gonna be having some fun. We'll check in. Let's check in next week before the Super Bowl. We'll get another episode in before the Super Bowl, and go further into this off-season wish list. But we're gonna have some fun with this off-season, the scouting combine, the draft, the free agency, then training camp fires up, and that quickly, it all happens again.
Yes, sir.
So hang out with us, y'all.
All right. Well, I will sign off, sir, with a bear down.
Yes, sir. And I will sign off with a go, Pack, go.